and welcome to the seventh episode of the Weekly Football Talk, or WFT. My name is once again Lee Lublin, and this week, just like last week, we will once again be recapping, as you can see, another Buccaneers game. This week, it was actually the Thursday night game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Tampa was going into the game 4-1, coming off obviously a pretty big win against the Dolphins. That final score, even though it was a blowout, it ended up actually being a close game for the most part. Whereas Philly is coming into the game 2-3 and actually surprisingly upset Carolina the week before. They were not, and honestly, it didn't look like they were in the game for most of the game. And then near the end, they just pulled a couple things out and beat Carolina. So Philly actually has a little bit of momentum going into this game. Final score of the game ended up being 28-22 Tampa. So Tampa improved to 5-1. Philly dropped to 2-4. But kind of like last week with Miami, I would argue that the final score doesn't really truthfully show how the game felt, but in a very different way. So once again, just so you guys remember, last week Tampa beat Miami 45-17. But that game honestly was a little bit closer than the final score indicates. It didn't become a huge blowout up until early in the fourth quarter. The first three quarters, or first two quarters, were close, and then Miami kept the score close throughout the third quarter too. This game was very different. It really did feel like that Tampa around the second quarter was in complete control. They ended up forcing a turnover on the Eagles, and once that happened, they scored to make it 21-7. They were up 14-7, and they forced the Eagles into a turnover. And then after that, they were able to go up 21-7. And once they went up 21-7, you kind of just felt like this game's probably over. You can't see Philadelphia coming back. And then after halftime, Philly immediately didn't do anything, and then Tampa was able to get the ball again and make it 28-7. So once again, it looked pretty over. Now, when I'm saying that the score doesn't indicate what actually happened, after it was 28-7 and the game pretty much felt over, Philadelphia actually did score two more times and made the game 28-22. They were within a score of winning. But even when Philly made it 28-22 with about 5 minutes left in the game, as a Bucs fan and just in general, I still didn't think they were going to win the game. Even though at that point, technically, all the momentum was on Philly's side. Tampa's offense, after that last touchdown in the third quarter, they kind of stopped doing things. Kind of just started, which happens to this offense sometimes. They just started to kind of just fall apart. But luckily, both them and the defense did just enough near the end to win the game. But like I said, even with all of that, I still was pretty confident that they were going to win this game, even when it became 28-22. So just like last week, I really don't think the final scores really indicates how the game was. It was a blowout. It was a rout, and Philadelphia was able to just kind of close in near the end of the game. But Tampa still won, and like I said, they improved to 5-1. And they are now I believe, a full 2 games ahead of their division, with Carolina losing again. Maybe it's only a game and a half above New Orleans because they just were on a bye week, but definitely good news for Tampa that Carolina has started to fall apart. And honestly, their division as a whole right now, I really don't know anything about that. I'm pretty sure the Falcons aren't a great football team, but I still have no clue what the Saints and Panthers are. They might be way better than I thought. They might still be good teams. They might still make runs for the playoffs. But, like, they've had a few games where I look and I can't see them finishing above 500. Both teams have had games like that. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Saints and Panthers move along. And I believe Tampa has their first matchup with Carolina in a couple weeks, and New Orleans maybe a week or two after. I know both of those matchups are coming up pretty soon. On Philly's side, Jalen Hurts is very interesting because if you just look at his passing stats, he didn't really have a great day. He barely threw for 100 yards, and he threw, I think it was 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But then if you add his rushing stats in, He had an extra 40 yards, so he had 150. Still not great at all, but better. But you also get to add 2 rushing touchdowns there, meaning he actually had 3 touchdowns to 1 interception that day. So I really don't know what to think about Jalen Hurts at this point. I think he's definitely the best Philly's got the rest of the year. They definitely should not start Joe Flacco, and I probably wouldn't start Gardner Minshew either. I just think they got to ride with Hurts, and fortunately for them, they actually own the Miami Dolphins first round pick, and Miami actually lost to Jacksonville this weekend, meaning that the Dolphins now, if the season ended today, would actually have the number 2 pick, meaning that the Eagles would actually have the number 2 pick, and that is obviously very significant because even though the quarterback class this year isn't very strong, having the number 2 pick means you probably, assuming that it stands where it is right now and Detroit finishes with the worst record, I don't know if Detroit really likes any of the quarterbacks over Jared Goff. And I would argue Jared Goff has possibly played better than Jalen Hurts this year. So I have no idea. It's just a very interesting situation. And definitely for Eagles fans, you're definitely going to be, rest of the season, definitely keep an eye on Miami because that team might end up giving you a top 5 pick the way they've been playing. So yeah, that's it. Kind of a shorter video this week. Honestly, unlike the Dolphins game, there wasn't a lot that's really stood out to me. It just kind of felt like a blowout that got a little bit close near the end. So, yep, that's it for this week. I will see you guys once again next week for another recap. And thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Peace.